Hi everyone, this is Gary with MACMOST.com, and tonight I'm doing a special live video here where I'm just going to explore what's new in the different apps for the Apple Creator Studio. So let's take a look. So Apple Creator Studio is new this week. Apple released it, they announced it a few weeks ago, and it's a subscription service. And basically, it includes a bunch of apps that you had to pay for before, and then some new features in some free apps that we've had all along. The web page here goes into some detail about it. It's mostly marketing stuff, but if you go into, this part of it here, it shows you the 10 apps that are involved. But the apps are involved in different ways. So it's important to understand how they're involved. The two big apps here are the Final Cut Pro app and Logic Pro app. So these are expensive apps, or were expensive apps, that you would buy standalone, one-time purchase, and then you would own them. Like Final Cut Pro is $299. And they're like Final Cut Pro's pro level video editing. Logic Pro is pro level music and sound stuff. And then you've got Pixelmator Pro, which Apple purchased last year, and it's been basically the same up until now. And there's a new version of it. And Pixelmator Pro was also paid. I think it was like 60 bucks, but I think the price varied and there were sales and stuff. So that's like a kind of like a Photoshop competitor with some extra things, but also it's not Photoshop. Photoshop is like huge, right? That's like saying Pages is like Microsoft Word. Word is huge. But Pixelmator Pro is really cool and useful. A lot of people love it. Then you see three apps that you probably all know: Keynote, Pages, and Numbers. Those are still free, but they're new versions of them, and there's some features that only work if you have a subscription to Apple Creator Studio. Then I'm going to skip Freeform right here and go to Motion and Compressor and Main Stage. And these are kind of support apps. Motion is kind of like this video effects app that is it's like a companion to Final Cut Pro. It's a fantastic app. It's a wonderful app. I love it. And you can use it standalone, but you would usually use it with Final Cut Pro. Compressor also compresses video and stuff. That's kind of used with Final Cut Pro, but you could use it with output from iMovie, for instance. And Main Stage is kind of like a live audio handling and stuff for like live events, concerts, or meetings, things like that. So that kind of fits in more as a support app for Logic Pro, although it still could be used standalone. Freeform is a weird app because it's kind of like one of the productivity apps that we have now, and it hasn't yet shown how it's involved in this because it hasn't been updated or changed. But I think it's just going to get some of the same stuff that I'll show you in Keynote, Pages, and Numbers. If we switch to the, let's take a look at the App Store here. You could see they're promoting it here in the Discover page. You go to it, and this has more direct information here about what, and they even group them together, like Final Cut Pro, Motion, and Compressor, right? Logic, Main Stage. You've got Pixelmator Pro. You've got Pages, Keynote, Numbers, and Freeform here. So yeah, that it's a little better, easier to read and see what's involved. So those are the apps that are involved. How are they involved? And that's an important thing to think about, is exactly how are they involved in this? Because they're each involved in a different way. Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, the two big heavy hitters here that were expensive standalone apps before, and I believe you can still get standalone versions of them for now, but the idea is, if you use Final Cut Pro or if you use Logic Pro, then probably the idea of spending 13 bucks a month or 130 bucks a year, it's an easy win there, right? Because these are big apps, the professional apps. 130 bucks a year is not, yeah, anybody using them professionally is not even going to blink at that. So those are the big heavy hitters. And then there's all those support apps that come with it, which is nice because some people might be paying like, oh, you pay 300 bucks for Final Cut Pro, but you get 50 bucks for Motion, 50 bucks for Compressor. So it's $400 for the full Final Cut Pro experience. And now it's just all part of this subscription here. And those apps have all been updated, and there's some new features added. So we get an update with it and all that as well. But it's a little different if you don't use those apps. Because if you don't use those apps, then the big thing that you get is Pixelmator Pro, maybe an app that you already use. There's probably a bigger audience for Pixelmator Pro than for the others. And it wasn't that expensive before, but if Apple hadn't purchased, I mean, it's not sustainable anymore to do like $60 and, you have it for 20 years. You're not going to get, they probably eventually would have done Pixelmator Pro 2, right? You would have had to pay for that or something. So it probably is worth it still if you're a Pixelmator Pro user. It's like, okay, you want to keep using that. So you want to, get this. But Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, it's really like almost all of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote is still on the free side. They're different than the others. The others were all like, you want them, you get the subscription, and now you've got them. You don't have to pay a one-time fee anymore. Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, they are all like, if you want them, free. Few features now that you need to be a subscriber to get, but all the features that you had before yesterday, they are all still free. So that's an important thing. You can upgrade to the new versions of these, which are 15.1 for each one of them. And then it's going to hit you with, do you want to subscribe? And you could say, no thanks. And now you have the new versions and all of the functionality you had before. Nothing is behind the paywall that you had before. There's some new stuff that's behind the paywall. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. Pages, Numbers, and Keynote have a similar set of new features and a few unique ones. Let's go and take a look at what you get here. And, this is the Content Hub, which is the ability to grab, like, search for cruise ship and then grab an image from Apple's stock photo library. So they're now a stock photo library as well. And you could select that and insert it in. So that's really handy. You can also do a AI image. Click here, generate an image. You pick the style, then you describe what you want, like that. And then it's going to generate it. And then you can have the opportunity to further modify it when you're done. So this looks a lot like Image Playground, and it basically seems to be Image Playground, but it's always powered by OpenAI, apparently. So yeah, and of course you could use tons of other services to do the same thing. So this is just Apple's version of that. And you could change the details. It gives you, some things, and you could change the background, add suggestions. Sometimes it puts suggestions, sometimes it doesn't. And you can, insert this in there. So you've got that. You can combine these. So you can go here, you can select like this, and you can control click on it and say generate from image instead. And then you could say, make this daytime. And the idea is that it's now a collaboration between a stock photo and you giving it suggestions of things to change. You can be really specific. You can make long prompts. I just did a short prompt there, and we'll see what it generates. And you could do the same thing with your own images, and I'll show you how in a minute. So here we go, and you can see it's generating the image successfully for the daytime. So we do, insert that instead. And there we go. That's handy. Bring in your own stuff. Oh, let me not bring a logo in first. Let me bring in like an image, like, I don't know, this one, just a photo here. And then I could do format image, and I could say generate from image. So it's my image there. And I could say something else like make it snowy wintertime. And then it's going to take my image that I took with my camera instead of something from the content studio. Um, so we'll just let that generate. And you could do all sorts of different things with this. And I'm going to show you in a minute here how you could do this with, it's not just photos, right? You do it with different stuff. So here you can see how it generated it. It made an AI change. Nothing you can't do with other services. Here's the MACMOST logo, and I could say, generate from image, you know, uh, you know, have, make it look like it is on fire. And, if you need to do something fancy with your logo like this, you can, and it'll change it. So that's really cool. Numbers in Keynote have the same thing. It's exactly the same AI image generation and the Content Hub. It's exactly the same. It's probably what Freeform will get as well. And, numbers probably not so useful. Keynote, of course, extremely useful. So you can, generate tons and tons of images here. So yeah, fun. Okay, don't save that. So yeah, we got that. Also, if you want, you can bring in an image and you could do stuff like, with the image selected, you can say auto crop. And all it's going to do is just crop it, give you some suggestions for cropping, like that. So it's just calling out to AI and saying, what's good crop for this? You'd also do super resolution, which will increase the resolution of the photo, which, this is already a high resolution photo, so it's not going to really do much. But, it would be slightly higher resolution in here. If we made this larger, let me actually zoom in with it cropped like that. And, we see the sign here. Let me undo the image resolution change to go back to the original and then zoom in and take a look. And it's hard to tell the difference because it's such a high resolution photo to begin with, but upscaling is a thing that you might need. So yeah, we've got all of that. Also, another thing in Pages is new templates. So if you go to File New, you've got your regular templates, and then you have your premium templates and a whole list of premium templates. And you can select here, and actually it shows you the premium templates broken up into category. So new premium templates, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. Those are all behind the paywall. Everything else is not behind the paywall. So all the regular stuff, just, writing text, doing layouts, styles, charts and tables and shapes and, all the stuff you did before with Pages, it's just there. It's available, and you can have the new version of Pages 15.1 and still do it. So it's important to know that, and that's true for Numbers and Keynote as well. Let's take a look at Keynote. So Keynote has all of the same stuff, the content stuff I just showed you, and it has its own set of new premium templates that are part of Keynote. So the stuff in Pages is the base stuff for Keynote Numbers, but Keynote has a couple tricks, and Notes has one trick. One trick that Keynote has is you can generate presenter notes. You can see at the bottom here. Click that, generate presenter notes, and what it's going to do is it's going to look at your slide, look at your whole presentation, and give you some notes for that slide. And you could do it for, each slide. And of course, you can edit them afterwards and all that. So that's one trick that it has. You could do also another thing, which is let's do new and create a new presentation. I'll just use the basic black presentation here. And you could do there's a way to create it new from outline. This button here does it. Generate slides from text. So you can say, my presentation's on Saturn, and you want to do, size, composition, moons, ring, uh, quick facts as our slides, and say generate. And what it's going to do is it's going to take your template here and it's going to generate slides based on that. So it's not just taking your outline and breaking it up. You'll actually see there's going to be information in this. So a good starting point for stuff. So you can see it generates all the slides there. Topics covered, size, and then size of Saturn, and it puts all that stuff, composition, and it puts all that there. It's creating a presentation for you. So that's kind of neat. two things that you can do there. Numbers has a trick called Magic Fill. And the way Magic Fill works is you have a bunch of information here, like these are full address text blocks, right? So you can do like, oh, what I want is the first name and the last name. And I want the city here, and I want the state, and I want the zip. Now, you're not going to want to do that for everything. So control click, right click, two finger click, use the button at the top. There's a menu item, all of that, million ways to get to Magic Fill Cell. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, well, based on this cell above and this cell on the left, I think probably what you want here is the person's first name. And you could say yes. And we could do it here as well. And we could say yes. We could select all the cells and we could say, yeah, Magic Fill. And you can see it gets it wrong because here, new space York, comma, NY, and the zip code. So it got confused because this is a one-word city and this is a two-word city. So we're going to say reject that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to give you a further example of this. And hopefully now you'll get it. And it will. In fact, I'll select all the cells here and I will use Magic Fill. And you can see it gets it right. And I could say accept. I could also, instead of saying ask text, I could say ask formulas. So now if I look here, there's actually a formula here. It's basically what it's doing is it's creating a formula using AI based on what it saw there. And it, you know, sets up these rules in a formula. So doing it as a formula is useful because now I can continue to add things and the formulas can be used to populate the other cells. Doing it as text would do the formula, but then just take the contents from the results and put it there. Anyway, that's Magic Fill. And it's kind of neat, it's kind of interesting, but it's the only one feature of Numbers 15.1 that's behind the paywall. Well, I shouldn't say the only one because you've got your content hub, you've got your AI image generation, you've got your new templates as well. That's stuff I mentioned before. That's all there. But in addition to that, Numbers has one trick, Magic Fill, and Keynote had two tricks, the notes and the create from an outline kind of thing. So yeah, that's running down some of the stuff. So next, let's take a look at Pixelmator Pro, but I would be remiss if I did not thank my Patreon supporters. So MACMOST is mostly supported from Patreon supporters. That's why at macmost.com and the newsletter I send out every Thursday, there are no ads in those. It's ad-free. So thankfully I've been ad-free since 2017, 2019. It's been a while. I've been ad-free thanks to Patreon supporters. So if you want to read about that, because there's extra videos I post to Patreon. There's also course discounts and stuff. Anyway, check this out right here. You just read about it and just see what it's about, and maybe keep it in mind as something for the future. So let's go and take a look at the other app I really want to spend time on. That's Pixelmator Pro. So Pixelmator Pro, of course, you could have purchased it before, and if you did, you still have that Pixelmator Pro. So that app is still available in the App Store, and you could still buy it. But a new Pixelmator Pro, a new version, came out that's part of Creator Studio. So probably moving forward, all the updates are going to be here in Creator Studio. Notice how it's using the new look. It's got all the new curves and light effects and all of that. So you get all of that in Pixelmator Pro. But besides that, it's pretty much unchanged with the exception of one feature. So this is, first let me just point out, this is just such good news because we've been worried, those of us that are Pixelmator Pro fans, we've been worried what's going to happen with it once that Apple bought it, right? Because Apple has a history of sometimes turning apps into like full-fledged Apple apps, like Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro. And sometimes the app, a few pieces get stripped from it, put in other apps, and the app goes away. We now know the Pixelmator Pro is now graduated up to like the level of Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. and becomes a full-fledged app, and it's part of this Creator Suite. So really good news that it will be with us for a long time. And it looks really great. It seems to work fine. I've been using it in my day-to-day stuff for the last 24, 48 hours. And it seems to all work as I expected. No learning curve of any changes. It's just a new look, but everything's in the same spot. The keyboard shortcuts all seem to do the same stuff and all that. So that's good news. The one trick that we've got is something called warp. So you can bring in something on a layer here. And if you go to your regular arrange tools, I don't think you can see it under me, but yeah, there's at the bottom of the regular tools, there's this warp button here. That's just one way to get to warp. You can also do like format and warp, and you can start like a warp like this or make editable. If we do make editable, it's just like basically saying start the warp thing. And then you get the ability to basically distort this as you want. It's not just points, it's curves too that you could distort. And you could add more points. So I could click here, and now I've got another point that I could disturb or twist to warp something. If I were to go back, let's go back here and say done. Okay, if I were to go back and say, let's do this thing warp, and I could choose a preset, like do an arc warp like that. And then I can grab like this one control here. There's a lot of other ways to do it. You've got warp controls here like this. You can see all the different ways you can warp, vertical and horizontal and stuff like that. It's a really cool, well done, smooth tool for doing stuff. And it basically, allows you to do a lot of 3D stuff. Matter of fact, one of the things that you can do with it is you can kind of wrap it around like real world objects. And that's kind of like, I guess you could count it as another new part of Pixelmator Pro, but it's just related to warp. You can choose these mock-ups. So you can choose a mock-up like, say, this. Let's do the lemonade bottle. I haven't done the lemonade bottle. Usually I do the cap. So you do the lemonade bottle here, and then there's a little plus button. You click the plus button, and you could grab something. So I'm going to get from files here. I will bring in that same thing, and you can see it's going to wrap MACMOST around the bottle, right? So all that is that's a warp there, but it's a warp that was pre-made to fit around this bottle really nicely. And you could do it with the hat, the t-shirt, there was a whole bunch of others. And then of course you could make your own. So, you just work meticulously with like a rectangle or some demo shape to wrap it around whatever it is you've got. And, like your picture of somebody wearing a t-shirt, and then you just kind of warp it to fit perfectly, but then you could reuse that. So that's kind of neat. And Pixelmator Pro looks great, looks really cool, and everything. Uh, so there's that. Um, so um, I want to look at the questions, but I have a feeling I'm going to answer a lot of the questions with this next part here. Let's talk about the questions everybody has. Okay, so what happens if you don't get Apple Creator Studio? How do things change for you with Pages, Numbers, and Keynote? Well, it's kind of weird, but it's all good news, right? First is the existing Pages, Numbers, and Keynote went up a tiny version. It went from 14.4 to 14.5, and you can update those and just stick with those. And they look like macOS Sequoia. They don't look like Tahoe, but they're there. Will they remain there forever? I doubt it. Like at some point, probably you want to move on to the newer version. But for now, you're not forced to update. There's, which is nice having these time overlaps, saying that, hey, you don't have to update today. This is going to be a process. Now, if you do update to the newer versions, which are all 15.1, 15.0 was probably like the internal beta testing for Apple, right? 15.0. 15.1 is what we have. If you update to if you get those, they are separate apps. So you can download all three of those, and you will have 6 apps. You have 2 versions of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote each. The old one with the old icon and the version number 14.5, and the new one with the new icon 15.1. What happens if you use the new ones, but you haven't subscribed? Well, when you go to select a template, it says, hey, get Creator Studio. But other than that, you can still choose all of the pre-existing templates. They're all there. If you go try to use something like the Content Hub or the insert AI image, it's going to say, oh, you need Creator Studio for that and give you a screen. But if you don't use those things, it doesn't bother you about it. And you can actually customize the toolbar and remove those from there. So they're not even there anymore. They're just in the menus now hidden. And you can continue to use Pages, Numbers, and Keynote with the 15.1 versions of those. So I've tried this on a different account and it worked. They work just fine. So that's good news. And that's probably the future moving forward is all the existing features before Creator Studio are going to remain free. And then the new stuff goes behind the paywall. But maybe not, because I really think like there'll be some new stuff that won't be behind the paywall. There's going to be some new features that Apple introduces, maybe minor things, settings, some options, a couple little things like that, that will just be just in there normally. There's no way tiny little things are going to be behind the paywall. It'll only be like the bigger, more interesting features. But Pages, Numbers, and Keynote were pretty well fleshed out, for a while now. So that's good news that we'll probably have those for free for a long time, maybe forever. Um, and of course, the subscription, it's, for students, it's like $3 a month. It's pretty cheap and you could, move in and out. If you open a Pages document that you did something like created a template or inserted an image, it's still going to be there. So, you should be fine. It's like not like the kind of thing where it's like, oh, that thing you added gets taken away now. It was something that you made, and you put it in the document, and now it should still be there. You just can't make a new one like that in a new document. So I think we're going to be good. Um, and this really makes it, the Apple Creator Studio now has three types of apps. There's, two types of apps, freemium and subscription apps, right? So Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and the smaller apps that support them, and Pixelmator Pro are all like subscription apps. The new version of Pixelmator Pro does not work at all unless you have a subscription. Um, but you've got the freemium apps, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. And I hate that term freemium in this case because typically freemium apps have a lot behind the paywall. You get basic stuff, maybe a word processor allows you to read documents or edit them, but not create them, that kind of thing. But Pages, Numbers, and Keynote are still have the same feature list as before. So freemium, but really heavy on the free side, very light on the paid side. Um, my opinions about a lot of these new features are that probably I like that they're all updated. I like some of the new stuff like the Warp and Pixelmator Pro, and I'm looking forward to new updates. But there's nothing super critical in Pages, Numbers, and Keynote that most people need right now. So if all you use is them, then it's probably a no-brainer to remain away from Apple Creator Studio for now. If you use Pixelmator Pro, then you might as well jump in and you were using a paid app anyway. Jump in now. If Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, definitely jump in. That's like the way to go. I mean, you're obviously doing professional work, so you should be using the latest version anyway. For the new features aren't anything super amazing in Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. Magic Fill is not that interesting to me. It's marginal use. You might use it once or something. The Keynote stuff is kind of like, it's a little gimmicky. Create your own presentation, write your own notes. It's no big deal. The templates look nice. I guess if you really want one of those templates and you have a budget, why not? The Content Hub is really thin right now, at least, compared to other, stock photography and stock illustration stuff. Super thin. Don't expect anything like what you get from, say, Adobe or like Shutterstock or anything like that. Nowhere near as much stuff in there. So that's a little disappointing. And it's easy to say, well, Apple might be adding more in the future, but I don't know. I don't know if they will or not. So little disappointing. And also, it wasn't great when I tested it out on some things. Like I searched for Denver, and not a single result, there were like 5, was of Denver. I searched for Colorado, a bunch of stuff came up, not very much, and a lot of stuff was of Utah and other surrounding states. I searched for wombat, and not a single result of the photos were for wombats. They were for like other animals, like wallabies. So, yeah, there's not too impressed with that, and not too impressed with the AI stuff either, because you can generate your own AI images in dozens of different places now, and you can use Image Playground also to generate very similar images. I think the resolution's a bit lower, but you've got options. And if you're at the pro level, you're already using some option to generate the images that you need and things. So, is it worth it? I think Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro users, yes. Pixelmator Pro, probably. Especially if you're using it professionally, then yes. If not, up to you to decide. If you're just pages, numbers, and Keynote, probably not, unless there's something very specific in what I talked about that you really, really want. Um, it's probably not, but it's a free trial right now. So you could always just do the free trial and then cancel it. And, maybe that's something that would be a way to actually check these out. Although you may want to wait until like Freeform is out just to see what's there, or maybe even wait for the next round of like, updates to Apple Creator Studio. Once they announce they've updated some stuff, it might be good to get the free trial then. Until then, just watch me play around with it, right? And see if there's something you really need. So let me take a look at the questions here. Um, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Pixelmator Pro is a very nice app. I love Pixelmator Pro. It's my favorite fun app now. iMovie and GarageBand I did not discuss because they're not part of this at all. So iMovie and GarageBand are still just iMovie and GarageBand, no change whatsoever. No idea what the future of those apps are. I I wonder now, like the future of GarageBand in particular, because Logic and GarageBand, there's a lot of overlap there. And unlike iMovie and Final Cut Pro, GarageBand and Logic, there's so much overlap and they work kind of the same way. So my feeling is it's like, do they need to support both now? Can they just sunset GarageBand at some point and then just tell everybody, oh, just get Logic Pro is that's the way to way to go. So maybe iMovie though, it's a very different kind of app from uh the a Final Cut Pro. So I don't know. Apple one time had something like called Final Cut Pro Express or Final Cut Express. I would love to see them actually come out with a new version of iMovie or a new app with a new name, like you reuse Final Cut Express or something like that as a replacement and say this is the free one. I can't see Apple saying the only option is going to be Final Cut Pro. That's the reason I think iMovie has to stick around, whereas GarageBand maybe not. Because I could see Apple saying no more GarageBand, it's all Logic Pro, and people being like, oh, okay, but no more iMovie. That's a whole different deal. So we'll see. No announcements. Apple hasn't said anything about either of these two apps, so it's just speculation. Um, Yeah, a lot of people are responding to the subscription thing. I'm a software developer, and I've been a software developer for much longer than I've been doing MACMOST, right? My whole career, I've a degree in computer science. I was developing software way back in the 80s, if you believe it. So I know I've seen the different models for software developers come up, and I know that the model of pay once, use forever was not sustainable. It was only sustainable because like hardware and software were changing so fast that it was like charge everybody once because 3 years from now my app isn't going to exist anymore. It'll be a new app or a new version if people really like it. So I'll just charge them again or I'll have moved on, that kind of thing. Once things settled down and apps started sticking around and you had to have software development teams that had to get paid, to stay, to maintain the app and come up with new features, it was inevitable that we had to move to subscription services. And I know that a lot of people don't like it, but it's the only way to actually have like really sustainable software development. Um, let's see. Can the slide generation be used to build outline for storyboard? Yeah, I think like not give it specific slides. You have to experiment with that and see. Certainly, you can do that with like ChatGPT. I've experimented in the past with using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you want, and say create an outline for me for a slideshow on something or a presentation on something, and Most of those now will export to PowerPoint format, or Google will do to Google Slides too, I think. And then you can import that into Keynote. And I've played around with actually, what if you want to make a presentation on some random topic? Can you generate it with AI, or at least get started? So now you have all of your slides, you know where to go, and you can go through and edit and add your own things. Um, oh yeah, somebody mentions the iPad. Uh, so iPad's got, pages, numbers, keynote, and all that. There is one other thing that's available now on the iPad. Pixelmator Pro was a Mac app. Now it's a Mac app, but that new version is also available on the iPad. So that's like another change that happened this week along with this. The new, uh, Creator Studio gives you Pixelmator Pro for iPad now. So, if that's something you wanted, probably worth the entire price right there. Um, Terms of service, I mean, you're gonna have to ask a lawyer about that, because, yeah, that is something about like, so many parts. There's software licenses for each of the apps. There's the terms of service for the whole Creator Studio, and then there's like licensing for the stock photography and all of that stuff. Lots of stuff to be looked into. Apple traditionally has been pretty good with this. Like, if they are giving you a creative tool, then you could just use it for whatever you want, professional jobs and everything. So I'd be surprised if it's any different here. I mean, Logic Pro is used for professional musicians to make music that they publish. Final Cut Pro is used to make movies, commercials, TV shows, all of that. And those all, there's like stuff that comes with those that people are using all the time. So, yeah, GarageBand on iPad is really cool. It's fun to play with. I haven't looked at what, I guess they would have to somehow bring Logic to iPad, or is Logic already on iPad? I'm not really sure. Logic's kind of new to me. I've been a GarageBand guy for a long time, so I'm going to enjoy playing with Logic now instead of GarageBand and learning that. Which of the Creative Studio will work offline? Well, all of those will work offline except the things that are online, right? The Content Hub is not on your Mac. The Content Hub is on a server. The AI stuff is calling out to a server, but all the rest of the stuff is all offline. So, no worries about that. You can still create stuff in Pages, edit video with Final Cut Pro, make music in Logic Pro, edit images in Pixelmator Pro, but any content it needs to grab online, like before, no change here. That wouldn't work offline, or you'd need to go online to get that template downloaded, for instance, and then you can go offline again, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so I think that that's a good first look at this. This is all very new. It's going to be interesting to see when the first update happens. It's going to be interesting to see if we get new content in the Creator Hub, or the Content Hub, and it's going to also just be interesting to people to delve into these new features and play around with them. And yeah, it's an exciting time, but it's also, yeah, I get it. It's a little bit of an anxious time, because it's like, if you use Pages, if you used it for years, everything's a little bit different now. So all of that. So yeah, I hope this is at least giving you some information about what's going on with all of this, and a look at maybe some of the new features that you can use if you're already in the free trial. I'll be doing videos individually on things. Like, I could definitely see myself doing videos on like Warp and Pixelmator Pro, the magic fill in numbers, maybe on stuff like the Content Hub. We'll see, coming up here shortly, and definitely videos on like how you can continue to use Pages, numbers, and Keynote with with the new apps, but without the subscription. I'm planning on doing one pretty quickly on that particular topic. So look for those coming up in the next few days and weeks. So yeah, everybody, thanks a lot for watching, and have a good evening.